If you're worried about communities, you gots to know
sustainability is the way to go.
Trying to get light, but you're low on cash.
Get off the grid, cause that thing is trash.
Choking on coal fire, you gots to say.
Man, there must be a greener way.
Trying to study, but it's too dark to see.
Small scale power will set you free.
Off grid.
What? Electricity.
Off grid.
What? Electricity.
Labor all day cause you got no skills.
There's new tech out to help you pay the bills.
Talking about jobs that'll raise your pay.
Watch out, social justice is on the way.
Maybe you're a lady and you're down on your luck. Skilled labor jobs don't give up.
Consideration! They hire without considering gender or social station.
Doesn't matter that you live way out in the sticks.
It's a human right to get your energy fix.
Off grid.
What? Electricity.
Off grid.
What? Electricity.
If you're an engineer and you think you're cool,
act like an equal mind expert, tool.
Working fast to get your projects done.
Your solar system won't have its time in the sun.
Find yourself where the waterfalls flow.
Hydro's quick where the grid don't go.
Off grid.
What? Electricity.
Off grid.
What? Electricity.
I don't think you're allowed to do this. I'm pretty sure.
Hey everybody, this is the Energy Group's project for engineering and sustainable community development. I'm Wolf Reichard. Over here we have...
I'm Ashley Rosacker.
And I'm Haley McComas.
And we are about to have such a great day doing some learning, having a good time. Electricity. Here we go.
So Wolf, we're here today to talk about some off-grid energy solutions and some engineering mindsets and criteria. You want to start us off by telling us a little bit about the pros and cons of these off-grid energy solutions?
Yeah, you know what, that sounds great. I just want to sort of open up the topic by explaining that our project's focused on small scale, solar solutions and hydro solutions for communities that are really far out into sort of the wilds of the world where it's tough to get the grid, and there's several pros and cons that we see, so I'll just start with the pros on that. It's incredibly cheap to get the system set up because they don't require a grid, which is usually very expensive, especially in mountainous or swampy terrain. You also don't have to wait a long time for the energy to be provided, because if you do manage to pony up the cost to provide a grid, you still have to develop that out miles and miles and miles. Mm-hmm. And on a simpler note, it's just a green way to carry on, because it's going to be hydroelectricity, it's going to be solar, in some cases it's even wind. However, there are some downsides. We see issues with meeting the electricity demand when small-scale green solutions are being provided off-grid. Coal fire, it has its drawbacks, but it does provide a lot of electricity. Another issue that we see is the fact that there aren't a lot of maintenance workers in communities that are very skilled, and that is sort of a double-edged sword, because it's positive on one side. It provides sort of skilled labor opportunities, as we heard in our super cool rap earlier, but you do have to train crew members so that you're able to provide the maintenance that's required. So does that sort of answer your question?
Yeah, I hear you.
All right, cool. Okay, so just to sort of get everybody up to speed on what we're going to be talking about today, we have some idea of the projects that we're dealing with, but we want to sort of analyze those under the lens of the Bridger and Luloff criteria, and also under some engineering mindsets that are being used, positively or negatively to get our projects moving forward. Just to sort of breach the subject with our Bridger and Luloff, we're seeing a lot of focus on local community participation and communicating with those community members. We're also seeing a lot of focus on creating solutions that are environmentally focused, and we're creating skilled labor opportunities that are enhancing social justice, these sort of things. So, I just want to sort of let y'all know about that. And then on the other focus that we're looking at with engineering mindsets, We see there's a little bit of a deficiency mindset at play at times, but one of the most primary areas of focus that we see is a focus on providing energy quickly. And we're sort of going to ask the question, is providing a little bit of energy quickly better than providing enough energy sustainably? So we're going to talk about that. We'll get into it. I don't want to get ahead of myself. But I guess moving on to the Bridger and Luloff criteria, we've got our resident expert, Haley, in the chair. And Haley, do you want to just give us like some more exposition into that?
Yeah, of course. So I'll start off with the first three that Wolf talked about. We're focusing a lot on local community participation and communication when we're going into these communities. We've seen through our projects that the community involvement has shown to help a project become sustainable and successful within these communities. In our projects in particular, the community members were often put in charge of the technologies and were trained to be put in charge of the maintenance and selling the different technologies, broadcasting them to their communities, and those types of things. As for environmental focuses, our solutions are all pertaining to renewable technologies because they're off-grid in these remote locations. And they all tend to be environmentally conscious because they are these renewable technologies that are not producing any types of wastes. In addition to being environmentally focused, they often receive a lot of funding because organizations see a great developmental potential in these renewable technologies. As for local resources, through the use of the local resources, development projects are often able to stay sustainable because the community members can keep them going for long periods of time. In our projects in particular, this was not necessarily fulfilled because it is this new technology that's being brought into the communities. So in the future, if there would be a way to make these renewable technologies able to be made in the communities, it would be more sustainable. As for the other three criteria that Wolf discussed briefly at the beginning, we're really looking to create an environment of social justice and improve social justice within the community. So these projects are taking into account everyone in the community, no matter who they are, and providing them with equal access to resources and opportunities. In our case, that's electricity. We have some projects through solar and hydroelectric power, providing lights and solar lanterns and electricity for pumping water and educational opportunities for everyone in the community, despite who they are. These projects are also creating a lot of skilled labor opportunities for our communities as well. So we're creating these jobs and opening new job markets for exploration of potential new career paths for people in the community that they otherwise would have never been exposed to. We're also going in with a mindset of respecting the culture and understanding the culture of the community. So not going into communities who are against modern technology and trying to put in solar panels or hydroelectric power. We're making sure that the communities are on board and respecting their cultural beliefs and traditions and things like that before we're trying to implement these technologies, which definitely paves the way for a successful project.
All right, Haley. Well, thanks for enlightening me on some of that stuff. I'm glad I didn't have to do that research. You were very thorough over there.
Yeah, of course. I was actually really interested in the beginning. You said something about engineering mindsets. I know that Ashley's done a lot of work looking into these engineering mindsets going into the development projects. Is she going to be able to talk about that?
I don't know. Let's turn to Ashley here. I know she's a senior and she's got a job, but I think she's actually going to help us out and do that for us.
All right, everyone. Well, I have done a little bit of research on mindsets and how they pertain to our off-grid energy. And so I'm just going to give a brief overview of what I've found. So starting out, I think it's just important to say that many different mindsets are present while working on community development projects. And in this class, we've spent a lot of time discussing engineering problem-solving methods. And engineers are so used to this because it is basically how all of our classes go. It's about problem definition, criteria that needs to be met, and then designing the project. But this mindset isn't always a successful way to approach community development. Therefore, as a team, we've determined a set of engineering mindsets that we believe are the most beneficial for sustainable community development. So, with off grid energy projects, we have seen many examples of engineers displaying the expert client relationship style due to the complexity of off grid energy resources. Although it may be challenging to fully involve the community involvement is one of the most important aspects to have sustainable community development. So, therefore, instead of feeling like experts, engineers should have the mindset that they are equals in order to fully engage and support the community effectively. Another mindset that we have noticed from engineers involved in off grid energy is that they're focused on the immediate solution instead of the longevity of the project. As stated earlier, off grid energy is used as a fast and cheap solution for energy needs in areas where the grid cannot be easily accessed. For my project in particular, it was focused on Nepal, which is very mountainous terrain and hard to expand the grid to. And so it's really important for the small villages to be able to have some sort of energy resources without having to be connected to the grid. And although off-grid energy resources are quick to build and get running, they're not necessarily long-lasting or the best solution for the long term. Therefore, having short-term goals in mind takes away from the overall sustainability because the long term is not accounted for. And it raises the question that if providing something, even if it's not sustainable, is better than providing nothing to a community that's in need. And it also raises the question about what length of time a project needs to run in order to be considered successful or sustainable. But aside from this, there's many other mindsets that are necessary for sustainable community development, such as the motivation to help. We've seen a lot of projects in this class this semester where projects were more successful when people working on the project had a certain tie to the community or a tie to the problem that they were trying to fix. And so just having that extra motivation or being really passionate about the project as a whole helps to make the project be more sustainable.
So thanks, Ashley. That was really insightful. I was really curious to learn about how engineers were going into these community development projects in general. So that was really great for me to learn about that, along with these criteria that I've been studying for such a long time. I think the future of these projects really has to do with building community relationships and how the engineers go into the community and deal with these projects, always keeping the criteria in mind, of course, but going into it with a different mindset than what they've necessarily learned in their technical training. What do you think?
Yeah, Haley, I completely agree with that. I think that it'll be interesting to see what the future is like for sustainable community development. I think that people are starting to figure out the need for it to be sustainable and are starting to incorporate that. So I'm really excited to see what comes out of that. Do you have anything you want to add, Wolf?
Yeah, I think just sort of it's worth considering, in order for a project to be sustainable, what sort of a timeline are we considering for sustainability? Particularly with these small scale things. And I guess, there are a lot of questions that we need to address before we can really consider something to be sustainable or not. So I think you can flip to the next. Yeah. So I guess in order for a project you know what, everybody's literate. I'm just going to sit silently for 15 minutes, 15 seconds as a matter of fact. Okay, so congratulations everyone on your ability to read. After having read these questions, maybe you're sort of, there are assumptions that we're making in terms of how long does something need to be sustainable in order for it to be considered a success, and what sort of cost benefit does something need to have to be considered a success. So these are some of the things that we can all be considering. But I think that about wraps it up for me. Do you guys have anything you want to add, or?
I think that's it. I'm just excited to see the responses that you guys have to these questions and the discussion that we can get going about this.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Definitely.
Absolutely. No all caps, please, because that's just sort of, I don't know.
Aggressive.
Bad. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.